everyone, it's Meg, and today I'm going to be showing you guys some underrated books that I think you should read. I haven't done one of these videos in a while. I think I did one last year. I will leave it in the description if you want to go and check that video out, because I really enjoyed doing that video and I have a few more books that I think are underrated and that I think more people should read. So these are a bunch of books that I've basically read and really enjoyed, and I either haven't seen loads of people talk about them, or at least the people that I personally follow online and on BookTube notes sort of talk about them, and I just feel like they need a little bit more love because they are absolutely wonderful books, every single one of them, and I would love more people to read them and discover them and hopefully love them just as much as I do. So I have 6 books to share with you guys today. I have a little mixture of books from adult to historical fiction, novels in verse and some YA. So I have put it in categories this time just so then you kind of know what you're getting. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and maybe find a book that you will pick up and really enjoy. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I'm going to start up with my adult contemporary that I have on this list, and that book is The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. I read this towards the end of last year and I have been wanting to read this book for ages, and one of my subscribers, Abby, very kindly gifted this to me. And this was definitely a book that I needed when I read it because I was in a reading slump, and it's just one of those things where you don't know how to get yourself out, and this book definitely got me out of a reading slump, which I absolutely loved. And in terms of adult contemporaries, this is right up my street. It is about community, it has multiple perspectives, it has really wonderful characters and lots of different side plots, even though you don't get mixed up and you don't get confused between people, and really lovely writing. I love the writing in this book because it reminds me of Libby Page's books, so if you like Libby Page, maybe try and pick this book up. If you do not know what this book is about, it is basically about a bunch of characters, about 6 main characters, and it all starts with our main character, or one of our main characters, should I say, Julian, who leaves a green notebook in Monica's cafe called the Authenticity Project, and basically he has written his truth in it, which he is scared to tell the rest of the world. And Monica finds it in her cafe and tries to return it to him, but then she ends up reading it and hearing his story and becomes inspired by it, and then writes her own truth in this green notebook and then gives it to somebody else. And basically this notebook gets passed around a bunch of people who read each other's truths and then write their own, and it's kind of that cycle, and they get to know each other on a very personal level, obviously because they get to read each other's stories in these books. But they also get to know each other in real life, which I really love. So they build this wonderful community and you get to see them grow as people and kind of come out their shells a bit more and maybe become slowly in a better place compared to where they were at the start of the story, because obviously they are stepping outside the comfort zone, they are making each other better. And I've come to realise that books about community are things that I really love, which is why I really love Libby Page's books, because they're about multiple characters and they are about community, which is something that I really love and I can also really relate to. Also, I just want to say trigger warning for substance abuse in this book, as it is a big part of one of our characters' stories and it is also own voices, as it is something that the author has had to deal with, but just be aware of that before going into this book. So if those are all of the things that you are looking for in a book, I highly recommend this up. It is heartwarming and heart-wrenching and sad and joyous and wonderful at the same time, with a fantastic bunch of characters. Julian is definitely my favourite out of all the characters in here. They are all great, but Julian is definitely my favourite. So if you ever read this book, you'll have to let me know which of your favourite characters is. But definitely a really wonderful, uplifting book with a really beautiful message. So if that is anything that you are looking for in a book, then I highly recommend that you pick it up. Next, I am going to talk about some historical fiction books that I have read, and they are both quite different, but I really enjoy both of them, so I hope you may find one of these that you would like to pick up. So the first one is The Ringmasters Daughter by Carly Schabowski. and this was the first book that I finished this year, I think, or the first novel anyway that I finished reading this year, and I got this as a Christmas present from my friend Em, and she really loved this book and she thought I would love it too. And this is a book set in 1940s France during World War II, and generally World War II isn't an era that I like to read about. It's not something that I'm very interested in personally, but this book isn't so much about the war, as obviously it is a part of the story as ongoing, but it's mainly about our main characters. And this is obviously, like I said, set in France in the 1940s, and it follows our main character called, it's either Michel or Michael, I think it is Michel, and he basically flees Paris as the Germans are about to invade it, and he ends up on a stowaway train which belongs to a circus, and he ends up working for this circus, training their horses, and he ends up becoming a part of this very misfit family of theatre performers. And the story is very much about the circus and about the people who are a part of it, and how they came to be where they are, and the stories behind the people who they are. And you also get to see how the war affects the circus and how people are treated, and it is a very beautiful story. That's how I would describe it. It is marketed as a love story, but I feel like the love story is very much kind of like a side plot compared to looking at these characters, and you really get to love these characters. They are so wonderful. You get to see the lovely community that they build and how they become closer when they learn about each other and each other's pasts and how they get to where they are today. And it is a very beautiful story. The writing is wonderful, and there is a very idyllic setting throughout most of the book, apart from when it kind of obviously gets to more of the climax towards the end of the book. But I really, really love this, and if you're looking for a book about circuses and a historical fiction, a World War II historical fiction, I really recommend picking this up. It is such a wonderful read with really wonderful characters and beautiful writing, and I definitely think more people should read it. And then the second historical fiction book I have is Splinters of Scarlet by Emily Bain Murphy, and again I read this last year and I absolutely adored this book, so much more than I thought I was going to. This is a historical fiction set in the 1900s. I think it's the 1900s because I get mixed up between 1800s and 1900s. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But it's a historical fiction novel set in Copenhagen, and it follows our main character called Marit. I think that is how you pronounce her name. And she is a seamstress, and she used to live at an orphanage, and she still has one of her best friends who lives there. And one day her best friend gets adopted by a very famous ballet dancer called Helen Vestergaard, and the Vestergaards are a family which Marit isn't really a fan of because her father died in their mines. So she basically ends up getting a job with the Vestergaards to keep an eye on her friend, and she ends up moving to this grand palace with all these magical servants. And I forgot to say that this book is kind of like magical realism as well, because Marit does have magic. So she gets to work in this palace with all these magical servants, and they aren't very welcoming to her at first, but they kind of come together in the end to try and solve this mystery. So it's kind of like a mystery of what really happened to Marit's father, what is really in the Vestergaard mines, what is going on. I hope that kind of made sense, that synopsis, because it is a little bit more complicated. But I really enjoyed this book. I do love historical fiction, and I love kind of like magical realism books, but kind of like the mystery aspect is something kind of new to me. It's not something that I'm generally a fan of, but I really enjoyed it. I could not guess what the mystery was, what the end product would be of this mystery. I could not guess it, and I'm somebody who's very good generally at guessing plot twists. So I really enjoyed this book. I was hooked the whole time, and I love Marit as a character. I love all of the characters. I think they are wonderful, and I really love the writing. The writing is so similar to Laura Wood's books. It's so immersive. You feel like you are in this magical palace with all these magical servants, and you get to about the food, and I really enjoy the romance actually. It's not a main part of the book again, but I did enjoy it. And it is just such a wonderful book if you are looking for kind of like a whimsical historical fiction with a bit of magic and mystery and action towards the end. I think it is an absolutely spectacular read, and I really think more people should read it because it is wonderful, and I've never read a book in Copenhagen before, so it was really lovely to learn a bit more about the culture there as well. So again, if you're looking for a magical historical fiction with beautiful writing, very immersive, with a mystery, I really think you should pick this up. It was such a wonderful, captivating read, and I cannot wait to see what Emily comes out with next. Next category is novels in verse, and the first one that I have is Blood Moon by Lucy Cufew, and I did talk about this recently in my recent reads video, so I won't talk about my opinions on this too much, but you can go and watch that video. I will leave it in the description if you want to go and check it out. But Blood Moon is a novel in verse, like I said, and it is dealing with periods, sex and online shaming, and it takes place in roughly about a week, where our main character Frankie basically has a sexual experience where she gets her period and she finds it embarrassing, but the guy she's with is really nice about it, so they laugh about it and then forget about it. And then the next day somebody at school finds out about it and makes a meme of Frankie, and it basically goes viral, and Frankie has to deal with the fallout of what has happened. And this is a very fast-paced book. You will not want to put this book down, and it is a very powerful book, a lot more powerful than I was expecting it to be, and you really get to see Frankie go through the emotions of what is happening and how she really struggles to deal with it, and how things like this can escalate so quickly, and how savage people can be, and how especially women are treated in situations like this compared to men. I find that is kind of very interesting, but I really love the feminist themes in this, and kind of the talk about online shaming and all that sort of thing. It's such a powerful book, and I really think everybody should read this book. Maybe if you're slightly on the older side, like definitely YA, not the younger side of high school, but it is a really powerful read. I feel like men and boys should read it as well as women, because it really has a very powerful message, and it is a topic I've never read about in a book before, and I feel like it is very well done. So again, if you're looking for a new novel in verse that deals with all the sorts of topics that I've talked about, I definitely recommend picking this book up. It was very, very powerful, probably one of my favourite books of the year so far, and I cannot wait to see what Lucy comes out with next. And then the second novel in verse that I want to recommend is The Girl and the Goddess by Nikita Gill. This was one of my favourite books of last year. It took me absolutely by surprise, and I'm so glad that I got to read it. This is Nikita's debut novel in verse, and it is basically a coming-of-age story of our main character Paro, who grows up in India, and then later on when she is a teenager she moves to London to study at university, and you basically see Paro grow up and the things that she deals with, and how she grows to be a woman, and how she tackles all these different challenges. And there are a lot of trigger warnings in this book, so please check the trigger warnings before you pick up this book. But this is split into 3 sections, and I'm not going to talk about too much about what happens actually in the book, because I feel like you need to read it for yourself. But there are so many important topics that are tackled in this book, such as body shaming, bullying, child abuse, mental health, homophobia, poverty, racism, terrorism, violence, like the list goes on. There is quite a long list of trigger warnings, so like I said, just be aware of that list before going into this book. And this book is also kind of magical because it is intertwined with stories of the gods and goddesses, which I did learn about in school. I did learn about some of them in school, but I obviously don't know a lot of them, so you get to hear about all these gods and goddesses who come to visit Paro throughout her life, and you get to hear the stories that she tells her and tells them, and what Paro learns from these lessons, which is really wonderful. I really enjoyed that aspect and kind of learning more about these stories. And there are also illustrations in this book as well, which I believe Nikita has done herself. Ironically, I can't actually find them whilst I'm looking, but there are illustrations as well, and it is just a really wonderful coming of age story, very powerful, so many important topics and discussions in this book, and I really feel like more people should read it. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about it that I personally watch or follow online talk about this book, but I have obviously been seeing it go around on Nikita's Instagram. I think it's an absolutely fantastic book, such an important read, and again, if you're looking for a new novel in verse, I really highly recommend picking this up. And then the last book I have on this list is a YA contemporary, and that is A Boy Queen by George Lester. I don't think I've talked about this book since I mentioned it in a recent reads video, which was probably towards the end of last year, but as soon as I heard about this book, I knew I had to read it, and I did get it in this description box. And if you love drag, you are going to adore this book. This is basically a coming of age story about our main character called Robin, who is in his final year of sixth form, and he has applied to go to drama school. He knows he is destined to go there. He is so excited. He's told everybody, from his peers to his teachers to his dance teachers to his family. Everybody knows that he is going to drama school, and they believe he's going to go to drama school, but unfortunately he gets a letter back saying that he has not been accepted, and Robin's world kind of falls apart because he doesn't know what he is meant to do, because he has set his mind on doing this for so long, and he has always been a fan of drag, obviously watching Drag Race like many people who adore drag do, and then one day he goes to a drag performance for his birthday, and he is totally entranced by seeing his first drag performance, his first local drag performance, and he basically starts doing drag. And there's a lot more to this book than that, but that's how I'm going to leave it for there. This is such a fun book. Robin is a great character. He's so sassy and just a really wonderful fleshed out character, and I really enjoy kind of the friendships and the banter between all the characters. And I love the relationship that he has with his mum as well as his drag mother as well. And you really get to see Robin kind of grow and see the process of what it takes to become a drag queen, and how all the little bits that come together to make a queen and who they are today, which I don't feel like I've read a couple of books about drag so far, and they do include like the process of drag, but you get to see it kind of in a little bit more detail in this book, which I really, really adored. And it is really wonderful. There are obviously some more important discussions on this, such as obviously what you do when your plans go wrong, when you are hoping to go to university, and also family dynamics, and there is also homophobia in this book, so just trigger warning for that as well. But it is such a wonderful, heartwarming book. Like, some of the end scenes I just adore with all my heart. It is so wonderful and so precious. I really, really enjoyed this book. It is such a fun read, but like I said, it has a very important message at the same time, and a very lovely coming of age story. So if you are looking to read more books that involve drag, I highly recommend picking this up. I do not think you will be disappointed, and it will guarantee to bring a smile to your face. So those are all the books that I wanted to talk about in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you maybe found a book in this list that you would like to pick up, or maybe a couple of books. I feel like there's a good variety of books that I have had here, and I really think more people should talk about them. I adore them all so, so much, and I hope that you may pick one of these up and that they might bring a little bit of joy into your life. Let me know in the comments if you have read one of these books and your opinions on them, because I would love to talk to you guys about these books, as I don't think I've ever really talked to anybody about these books before, apart from obviously in videos. And also don't forget to mention any books that you think more people should read in the comments below. I'm always looking for more recommendations, and it's also so lovely to share books that you really enjoy with other people as well. If you like this video, then please make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more bookish videos from me, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you'll be noted every time I post a new video. As always, I will leave a link to my social media along with the links to my Goodreads in the description down below for you guys. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you so, so much, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!